Hey students, this is Miss Wendt, and these are the notes for the second section of Chapter 3 in the textbook. So that would be pages 85 to 91. And we're going to look a little bit at climate and weather and how that affects living things. All right, so we need to define a couple words here. So our first word is the word climate. So climate is the patterns and averages of your temperature and your precipitation. Precipitation would be rain or snow, the wind you get, and everything else kind of with the weather over many, many years. Okay, so in Minnesota, we kind of have a pattern of in the springtime, especially in like late March and April, we tend to get rainstorms, maybe thunderstorms, and then it gets maybe drier in towards the end of the summer. Okay, so kind of those rain patterns there. We have average temperatures. So in the summertime, you're going to have some days which are like in the low 70s and some days which are like busting 100. But overall, the average of every day in the summer is like, 80 degrees between June, July, and August. Some will be hotter, some will be colder, but that's kind of the average of all of them put together. In the wintertime, our average temperature might be more like 28 degrees. Okay, being in the Worthington area, we are in a place where we do have quite a bit of wind, and that's because of the weather coming off of the Rocky Mountains tends to give us a lot of wind from the west. And then we also have weather patterns that come up from the Gulf of Mexico that gives us wind from the south. So we do have wind patterns as well. So this all affects the climate of our area here in Worthington, Minnesota. If you lived in Arizona or Hawaii, you would have a much different climate because of how close or far away you are from oceans that give you lots of moisture, the direction your winds go, and things like that. Okay. Now, one of the words we learned last time was abiotic. The A in front means not, so abiotic is not living. So these are not living factors that do affect living things here. Okay. Now, precipitation, like I said, this is the water we get. So in Minnesota, we'll get rain during part of the year, snow during part of the year. Unfortunately, sometimes we have hail, other mixtures of snow and rain like sleet and things like that could happen. So precipitation is how much water we get from the air. And then the word weather, weather's your short-term changes. So what's Tuesday going to be? What's Wednesday going to be? It might be bigger or smaller than the average, and that's fine. But weather is just what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, not what's it going to average for the whole summer. Okay, so we want to make sure everybody's familiar with these words. You maybe have learned these in the past, and that's cool. But you just want to make sure that that's clear what the difference between those words are for you. If you're not done writing, please feel free to pause the video until you are. All right, so there is something on planet Earth called the greenhouse effect. Okay, this is not the same thing as global warming. Okay, so that's a misconception. Greenhouse effect is very much a real thing. And it's really important for us on planet Earth. So let me show you why this is really important. Okay, so in this diagram, we have the sun here, and the sun's really far away from us. That's why it looks small, because really the sun's bigger. And we get a whole bunch of energy from the sun. And that energy is in the form of light that we can see, heat that we can feel. There's also energy of X-rays and gamma rays. A lot of those rays get blocked off by our atmosphere, which is really important because they can cause cancer to us. But the heat can come through the atmosphere. And if I was going to draw kind of what this looks like here, let me grab a pen. So the energy coming off the sun, it travels as a wave. And so waves go up and down, 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 and it hits the earth. And some of that energy is going to go into the earth. It makes the soil warm and the water warm, but some of it will bounce off. And the amount that bounces off might depend on like the color or the type of surface. Maybe you've seen sun bouncing off of lakes or snow, and it's really bright because lots of light is bouncing off, okay? But when I draw it bouncing off, I'm going to make the wave a little bit longer. So my waves aren't as squished together. And that shows that they've lost some energy. So they had lots of energy coming in. Some of the energy went into the earth, and now they have less energy. Well, the problem is they don't have enough energy to escape, to get out. And they actually bounce back down again. And they might bounce back and forth several times before this energy is able to escape planet Earth. That's really important for our survival that it does that. Okay, so if we read our words here, energy from the sun hits the Earth. Some energy is absorbed by the Earth, and some bounces back up. So we've seen that. Let's look at the next step. The bounced energy does not have enough energy to escape the atmosphere, so it gets trapped in the air. Okay, so we showed that by making that wave picture more spread out, and then it bounces back down to the Earth. Okay. Now, there's some specific gases that help trap that heat energy and bounce it back. And I do want you to write these down. These show up on a quiz, okay? So the most important gases we have that trap heat, first one is carbon dioxide. Carbon symbol is letter C. Dioxide, di means two, and oxide is oxygen, so we have two oxygens. Carbon dioxide, and this goes in the air when we burn fuel. So anytime we burn gasoline in a car, if we're burning coal or oil in a power plant, if you're burning wood in a campfire, the carbon dioxide goes up into the air. Okay, so that's where we get carbon dioxide from. Another gas that traps a lot of heat is a gas called methane. And I'll just kind of pause here for a minute, let you catch up with writing and read that. So methane is a carbon atom and 4 hydrogen atoms stuck to that. And you don't have to memorize that. You just might see it on some worksheets and stuff. That's what they're talking about. Some burning of fuels will put methane in the air. Another big source of methane is large animals like cows. When they're eating plants and their body is basically burning the plants for energy when they digest their food, methane comes out of their back end. So anytime a cow farts, we're putting methane in the air. And really any animal does this. But cows, with their high grass diet and the fact that sometimes farms have hundreds of them at the same time, it tends to be a concern that there's that many cows putting methane in the air. Okay. We also get lots of methane naturally when plants and animals are decomposing. So if there's a dead tree in the woods, as that tree turns slowly back into soil, some of that tree will turn into methane gas that gets released. Okay, so these guys are totally natural in the air. I mean, they're there in natural courses, and they help bounce that heat back in. Third one, we're going to have 4 all together here. The third one is called nitrous oxides. And that's a nitrogen and oxygen together. And sometimes there's 2 nitrogens and 1 oxygen, or different combinations of things. You don't have to memorize that. But nitrous oxides come from a lot of fertilizer, and also when you burn gasoline in cars. So these gases will bounce the heat back into the atmosphere. And then our last one might be kind of surprising. It's water. So water vapor, water is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And water vapor acts like a good blanket to keep the heat inside as well. Now the problem with water vapor is, when the air gets warmer, we evaporate more water from the ocean. So the ocean water heats up and turns into a gas, and that puts more gas in the air and it traps more heat. So then we have more evaporation and it traps more heat and we have more evaporation, and so forth and so forth. So if the planet gets warmer, this water vapor cycle will make it keep getting warmer too. And there's nothing we can do to stop the water cycle. That's just a natural thing that happens. As humans, what we could do is work on these guys. Burn less stuff. And that would put less of these in the air if it becomes a problem. Okay. Now we do need some of this in the air, but not too much. Now here's a graph of some of these gases here. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Very professional video editing here, guys. I apologize for that. It's not going to let me adjust the screen too much. Let me see if I can just make this smaller. There we go. All right, so we have some data. And if you look here, there's 2,000 years worth of data. And it shows that the carbon dioxide and the nitrous oxide and the methane on planet Earth were pretty much the same. There's little bits of ups and downs, but they're all pretty much the same. And then in the last, I don't know, a couple hundred years, you can see that all three of these have gone up a huge amount. And these numbers going up match up with the Industrial Revolution, when we started building factories that burned a lot of fuel, where we had electricity in our homes, so we were burning fuel for power plants. And also we have the invention of the automobile and the airplane, so we're burning fuel to move those vehicles around. So having some of these gases in the air is absolutely normal and necessary, but right now we're putting a lot more in the air than we ever have in the past. And that could be a problem, because if we end up with too much heat, that's going to affect plants and animals and the evaporating in the ocean, which affects all the weather patterns and things like that. Okay, so we do want you to know these greenhouse gases, as they're called, because they use the greenhouse effect. And then remember, water's one of them as well, but there's not much we can do to control water. So usually we focus on these three guys here. Okay, one more graph I want to show you real quick. This is a picture of the carbon dioxide levels at the Mauna Loa Observatory. So an observatory is a place where you have a big telescope to look at stars. Well, they also put some weather gathering data up there. In the middle of the Hawaiian Islands is a good place to try to track things, to try to predict hurricanes and stuff. So you can see, like down here, here's NOAA. This is the National Oceanic Atmosphere Association. This is the National Weather Service as part of this group here. So it's this really good data, government funded, and you can see it goes back till about 1957. And the black line is the average amount of carbon dioxide they recorded. And this site is a really good test site because it's far away from big cities, it's far away from factories. So there's not going to be anything like that that's really going to affect the data. And you can see the amount of carbon dioxide has steadily gone up. Now, it's really cool about the red line. That's the actual data they collected like every day. In the wintertime, it went down, and in the summertime, it went up. So every down is a wintertime, and every up is a summertime. Okay? And what it was it's actually the winter and the summertime for the rainforest in Brazil. The rainforest in Brazil is so very important to taking carbon dioxide out of the air that we can see the seasonal differences. In the summertime, the carbon dioxide levels went down because the rainforest was sucking so much carbon dioxide out of the air when they were growing and doing photosynthesis. And then in the wintertime, when all, the leaves would fall and stuff, the carbon dioxide levels would go back up again. So every season, it would go down and go back up with the change in the seasons, and that makes sense. But from year to year to year, overall, it never went back down to where it started from. So that could be the problem. Okay, so just more data to show that the levels of these greenhouse gases are going up, and that's a real thing. Okay, now it is important for these forests. Okay, so Earth, we have some greenhouse gases here. It keeps us from getting too hot or too cold. If we end up with too many greenhouse gases, we start getting too hot, and that's a problem. Okay, but if we had none of them, we would be like the moon or Mercury. Our moon and Mercury, the first planet closest to the sun, they have no air at all on their planets, which means there's nothing to bounce the heat back and nothing to block some of the incoming heat from coming in. So the parts of the planet that are in the sunshine are really hot. They're getting a full blast of heat from the sun. But the parts that are in the nighttime are freezing cold. They have no benefit of the sun from before. So there might be a 600-degree difference in temperature between daytime and nighttime. And humans could not survive in either situation without a lot of technology and a lot of help. Okay. Now the opposite of that would be Venus. Venus has a very thick atmosphere. It's very, very hot all the time. So they have tons of greenhouse gases and the heat never really escapes. So it's just like 400 degrees all the time. It's dreadful on Venus. We don't want to go there either. Okay, so the greenhouse effect is a very important thing. We want you to know what the gases are that are involved with it. We want you to know that the greenhouse effect is required for life on planet Earth. There's no life on the moon or Mercury. Those temperature extremes are too big. Okay, so we do need some greenhouse effect on Earth to survive, but too much would be a bad thing. Okay, so we're going to end these notes for Chapter 3, Section 2 now. Have a great day.